If you're anything like me, you can feel your attention span getting shorter by the day. So what we wanted to do was basically cram as much value into a short amount of time as possible so that you can get the insights as quickly as you need them. The intent of this video is to summarize the podcast that we shot on meaning, and then to also help to add key actionable insights that I've gained over the past 7 years of working with Jim that have helped me to integrate a feeling of meaning into my life. My intent is to also show that spirituality doesn't need to be woo-woo or religious whatsoever, right? You can have incredibly expansive experiences and integrate this feeling of meaning into your life, into this society, although it might be countercultural. So we start off with a story from my personal experience, then we go into what even is meaning. What are the symptoms of a lack of meaning? What is the root cause of those symptoms? And then what are 3 ways to get more of it into your life? And then 3 exercises to complement each of those steps that you can start doing today. Finally, we end with what are the outcomes? What would you expect to feel with having more meaning in your life? Really, like, why should you care? Well, let's get started with a story from my personal experience that will help to integrate and weave all of the elements that we'll talk about afterwards. So let me set the scene really quickly. We're at Still Life and I'm chatting with Jim because we're about to launch our 6-month program. So that's 6 workshops, 1 a month for a group of 80 people. We came to the conclusion that we would be rehearsing every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Saturday, right? From about 10 till 6. I was like, sure, let's do it. And as I'm walking out, it dawned on me that as a 28-year-old, I had just signed off every single one of my Friday nights for 9 months. And that did not sit very well with me. I was a much different person back then. I really highly valued nightlife. And I was pretty damn good at it. And so to take that away was akin to torture. And I get to the grocery store and there's a good mate of mine. And he comes up to me and he's telling me all about this time that he'd spent the past 2 weeks. He had gone like ice trekking or something with Wim Hof, the breathwork guy. And he was like, I just got to spend so much time with someone that was only giving energy. There was no taking energy, it was only giving energy. And I walked out of that thinking to myself, here I am resentful, and what I've just gotten to do is get a front row seat to, in my opinion, the world's finest therapist, crafting a masterpiece. I'm talking to a man who should be retired, who should be sipping pina coladas on a bloody beach somewhere. All he wants to do is commit 24 hours of material to memory so that he can energetically not have to think about a confidence monitor, a script, anything like that, so that he can be still, so that he can be that in the room for those people. Like, that's give. That's no take. And I get to get a front row seat to that. I ain't paying thousands of dollars to go to Iceland and freeze my nuts off. No, I get to do that 4 minutes walk from my house. It's like, wow. That is a privilege. That reframe in my attitude, so helpful. Now skip forwards a few months and we're right in the thick of it. And it is onslaught. At that point, we were still running an app and we were still recruiting for the next program because we had already gotten on that treadmill. There's a lot to be doing and I have to take out close to half of my time to rehearse. It's like, oh my God. And I remember one morning, I had cold sores under my lip. I had eczema around my eyes and under my nose. Like, stress was just riddling my body. And I looked down at my calf and it's like there are these worms under my calf. My muscles are just spasming. Oh, this is not good. And so I get very quiet. I was sat right there. I get really quiet. I do these series of techniques. And then I'm in this space. And the only way I can describe it, and it's not even a good description, it does absolutely no justice to the feeling sense itself. But the only way I can describe it was I was like one of those Matryoshka dolls, those Russian nesting dolls. And I just upgraded to a bigger version of myself and bombed this small little light that was within my mind, this small broken little boy that needed help, that needed strength. From all angles, just filled this guy with love. And this wasn't just a flash in the pan kind of sensation. This was minutes of just absolute fulfillment and bliss and light in me. It was incredible. I'm bawling my eyes out, weeping, just tears streaming down my face, right? And I have this overwhelming sensation of, yes, you're under a lot of pressure, but that pressure is a privilege, son. That pressure is something that people would kill for. That pressure is something that you would kill for, because this feeling that you got is a direct result of giving and doing your best for something that you truly believe in. So lean over, tie your shoes a little tighter, and keep running. And that energy just filled me. That energy was there when I didn't have it, right? And knowing that the people that we were working with would have a higher likelihood of being able to access that state within themselves because of the work that we were doing together, that right there gave me such a deep-seated feeling of meaning that has lasted and persisted for years. Great. Story time's over. You just had a grown man tell you how much he likes crying. So let's get into actually how this can be practically applied. Let's piece this apart, see what elements are there, and then see how they could potentially work for your life. So firstly, what is meaning? Well, this meaning, it's a feeling, right? You can call it meaning, you can call it purpose, you can call it your calling, whatever you want to call it. But you feel it. And it guides how you act. Okay, let's go into the symptoms of a lack of meaning, right? And this is something that we have all felt before. Apathy, restlessness, boredom, lack of initiative, whatever you want to call it. Listen to Jim. He does a great job summing this up.
Very frequently, what they're feeling is a lack of connection, a lack of wholeness, a lack of purpose. A lot of people today are thrashing around, desperately looking for something out there that will fill something that's missing in here. And when you don't sense it, there's an agitation. There's a feeling of not being complete, not being whole. And I think most people know what that feels like, because most of us have had a time, at least, if not even right now, when we didn't feel that deeper sense of meaning.
It's that feeling of agitation that pushes a lot of people into unhealthy habits. If you spend your whole week doing something that doesn't fill you up, that doesn't give you that sense of meaning, you're then going to want to do something on the weekend that gives you temporary reprieve from that agitation. And so this leads to overconsumption of media, overconsumption of alcohol, overconsumption of food, anything that temporarily relieves the symptoms. But the problem is with the overconsumption of junk stuff is that it doesn't work. It kind of works temporarily, but you have to pay a larger price the next day for it. So that's a trap. It's a cycle. The symptoms of this lack of this feeling are all over, and they're kind of disguised. What are the causes of a lack of meaning? Because we've discussed the symptoms, but what's really underlying that? Now, a large reason to why many of us may feel as if we're lacking meaning is because we're conforming to values that might not really be ours. We're living by what others expect us to do, not what we intrinsically want to be doing. Listen to Jim nail this again.
Very quickly, these intrinsic values, as you just said, values that come up within yourself, what it is that's important to you, important enough that you spend your time, your energy, your resources, your money, your life to have. Then there are extrinsic values that are imposed from any group, any culture, any tribe, as small a group as your own family. And these extrinsic values draw strongly on your need to belong. That is, your status in that group. Try to remember that those extrinsic values are there to benefit the group. They're not necessarily there to benefit you. In fact, for the most part, you'll find that those values, extrinsic values, are demanding that you either lessen, you sidestep, even compromise your personal intrinsic values in favor of the greater good of this group. And that's a good thing. That's how groups survive. If everyone is just concerned with their own intrinsic values, there's no group cohesion. So that's okay. I'd like to suggest, though, that a life well lived is an ideal balance between intrinsic and extrinsic values.
Please don't get me wrong here. Extrinsic values, societal values, are critical for society to function. It's really important. However, if you conform too closely to them, as Jim says, your center is outside of yourself. You don't have that center. So how do you build meaning? How do you feel it more? Now let's go back to our story. The first piece. Remember when I was telling you about I went to the grocery store and I was talking to my friend about Wim Hof, and all of a sudden he gave me a frame shift of, oh, aren't I unlucky because I don't get to go drinking every Friday night for the next 9 months, to I get to spend time with someone who I believe is the most intelligent man alive, crafting his therapeutic genius to helping people. I get to witness that firsthand. That is beautiful, right? Same information, different frame shift, right? Different attitude. And Jim talks about this in our podcast.
It's the same game, same two teams, but completely different meaning for one group to the other.
Things can mean many things. It's the significance that you apply to it. How do you build more meaning into your life? Shift the frame. Start telling yourself different little snippets, and those will build into beliefs that will give you a deeper sense of meaning. So changing your attitude, your self-talk, that's step 1. Step 2, visualization. Visualize a better future for you and the people around you. If you include others in a public way, for example, if you're chairman of the board of a non-profit, you are publicly declaring that this is something that you stand for, right? That is an incredible motivator because you are using extrinsic values to help keep your behavior in line as well. But visualizing that better future for you, this is what I want this to turn into, that gives a deep sense of meaning, right? And let's go back to, again, our example of, okay, what happens to people after they go through this 6-month program? Hopefully they have more exposure to deep states of meditation and stillness within themselves, and more access to these states of mind and being that are just so beautiful to be a part of. Wow. That right there is a future that I'm buying into. That right there is a future that I love for us. That right there is a brilliant way to funnel my energy into creating a better world. Lovely. So step 1, you can change your attitude whenever you want. Step 2, you can visualize whatever you want. And if you check a couple of boxes, first one, this is a future that I think is going to be better for me. Check. If you can include this is a future that I think is going to be better for other people, that's going to help you stay consistent. That's going to help you publicly pull yourself forwards because you're using extrinsic values. Third way to build meaning into your life. Surrender fully to an experience. Now, you can speak to a lot of people that have readily accessed meaning, whether it be musicians, ballerinas, people surfing, whatever. Anybody that has this direct access to the appreciation of the present for exactly what the present is, and that comes from physical activity, musical activity, whatever, that gives a deep sense of meaning. It does. It gives a deep sense of feeling. That's why the artists are so passionate even though they're getting paid nothing. That's why the musicians will continue to strive in an industry that's just twisted, right? Because of that feeling that they get from it. It's a feeling, and it's an appreciation of the present moment, right? You speak to any jazz musician, and when jazz is jazz, oh, that is, you can't beat it. But they're talking about that present moment and a deep appreciation of that. Now, there are many vehicles that you can use. You can buy a surfboard, and that will take a while, but you will get to a point where you will start feeling that regularly if you're in a place that you can surf. Sorry, that was a huge assumption. If you're in, like, Chicago and you're listening to this, you're probably like, fuck you, man. But you can get that biking. Actually, the point that I'm getting to is that you can actually train your mind to get to that state without any stimulus. And that is meditation. That is mindfulness. Whatever you want to call it. And to me, that's the most sustainable thing to do because you don't need any external stimuli to find that internal place. But those 3 ways are how you can build more meaning into your life right away. Change your attitude, visualize a better future, and experience the now deeply. That all sounds great in theory. How do you practice it? Because all of this stuff requires practice. Firstly, changing your attitude. Start a gratitude journal, right? That is the easiest way. You start listing things that you are lucky for, and you will realize quickly that the mind likes to fixate on things that are comparable to the group around us, right? But when you start listing things that you take for granted every day, then you start to realize, wow, I have volitional access to one of nature's finest biomechanical meat suits, right? It can do this on demand. I don't even know how intention works, but I can intend to move my arm, and I can think about it and do it in my mind as well. And I can just, like, this thing is awesome. Like, this thing is awesome, right? I can see. I'm really grateful that I can see. I can hear. I can smell. I can walk. Oh my God. You start writing this stuff down, your attitude changes right away. You don't even have to write it down. You can just start listing the obvious, right? Okay. Number 2, visualization. This can be done in many ways, and I think that the best way to get to the core of what is truly intrinsically meaningful to you is get a piece of paper or a couple. I remember doing this back in 2015 in Chicago. I was doing a summer internship at Feinberg, that's Northwestern's medical school, and I did this exercise where I completed the sentence, I am here on earth to do, right? And I just went through and I answered that sentence until I cried, right? I just went, I am here to do this. Okay, try it again. I'm here to do this. Cool, try it again. I'm here to do this. And sure enough, just do that. Just do it. It will take 20 minutes. It will take 30 minutes. It will take 40 minutes. But you will get to this place where you're like, oh, you read a sentence and it's resonating in there. It's not at this surface level like, oh, I'm here to, buy and sell Ferraris. It's like, no, oh God. You get to that and then you visualize around that. You visualize around that, right? How do I then employ this with the certain skills that I have in the world? Really helpful. Okay. 3, experiencing the now. We have a free 30-day stillness audio journey, which is just Jim's meditations stacked for you in 30 days. Like, there's so many resources that I can point you in a direction for establishing an introspective practice. So please comment or anything. Raise your hand, right? That's why we're on this earth, is so that you can have more access to this state of mind and being. And we're not just going to be completely self-serving and say like, oh, just look at some still life stuff because everybody else sucks. No, it's like there's some really good information out there, and I'm so happy to just funnel this in any way. What are the outcomes of having meaning in your life? Why would you even want to have meaning? It's a great question, right? Well, it makes decision making easy, right? Your priorities are very clear. We go back to our example. I made one decision. Yes, Jim, I will rehearse with you every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday for the next 9 months. That decision made a whole bunch of decisions for me. There was no questioning whether I wanted to go out on a Friday night. I couldn't, right? Priorities are very clear, and there is liberation in that simplicity. There is freedom in that discipline. Secondly, if you adhere more closely to the values within yourself, it gives you a sense of worth. It gives you a sense of you are who you say you are. And that gives you this bulletproof feeling of being able to walk into any room and not care who is in that room in the most beautiful way possible. I'm not saying like, oh, I don't care about my mom or anything, but you walk into a room and you are so self-assured, you are so comfortable in your own skin that people might like you, people might not like you. That's absolutely fine. There is no sort of, I used to get so wrapped up in what other people think about me, I don't care anymore. And that, again, liberating. That right there is freedom, right? Thirdly, there is a difference between your state of mind and your feeling state. Now, this is kind of deep, right? let's go back to the story that I told to start with. Here I am, and my calves crumpling up, and my state of mind is screwed up, right? I am filled with self-pity and so much doubt, and I am so scared. However, my state of being, something much deeper underneath that, oof, you're just fine. You're doing great. And so there's this difference. Whereas before, I always used to think that my state of mind was my state of being. But no, my state of mind is now something that I can observe from a distance. And this thing that the observer, at this instance, filled that state of mind with love. That's incredible. So, the outcomes makes decisions very clear. There's a sense of authenticity, and you have this decoupling of state of mind and state of being, which is so incredible for persistence, for stamina, for endurance, whatever that may be, because you're doing it for something that's meaningful. You're doing it for something, that feeling that's deeper within you. You're doing it for that. So, all in all, that's a wrap up on meaning. Let us know how we can be helpful.